Mr. Kipp Sorensen, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man. How was your weekend?
It was good. What did I do? Spent some time with some friends. In fact, I'm having our first ever outside event on our property in the fall. We're hosting a marriage for my good friend Caleb Oliver. I don't have you been out? You've been out here, right?
Yeah. And Caleb, I met Caleb last time we were coming out working on the property, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Didn't he
check this
help
out.
move the
Yeah.
doors and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So check this out. This is really cool. This is actually a really good lesson. So when I moved to Maine about a year and a half ago, has it been that long? Yeah, about a year and a half ago. Yeah. He reached out to me. He sent me a text or a message on Instagram or somewhere and said, "Hey man, I follow you. I know you moved out here to Maine. I'm pretty close. I do electrical work. I know you've got that barn. If you ever need any electrical work, I'd love to come over and help." And it was a perfect pitch on his part.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, actually, I do need some outlets installed. I need some fixtures, some lighting switches and fixtures installed. So if you're interested, yeah, come on over. I don't have an electrician." So he came over and he did the work pro bono. He's like, "Hey, I just believe in what you're doing. I want to say thank you. I appreciate all the messages and whatnot that you put out. So just allow this to be my gift for you and the value you've added to my life." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I didn't expect that, but that was a nice offer." And then we had some other electrical and things like that I needed to have done, which I paid him for. Of course, I compensated him for because I don't want to take advantage of people. But then he came out to a couple of our events and everything else. And we've just built a friendship over time. And he's done probably at this point, I don't know, 7 or 8 just different odd jobs and things around the house. And so about a month ago, I want to say, I was out of town, but he actually proposed to his fiance in our barn, and they want to do the wedding here. So him and his fiance came over. We had dinner and just spent the afternoon together, and they talked about what they wanted and everything else. So he's going to do a little bit more electrical for us to get everything the way that he wants it and his bride wants it. But I just thought, outside of our friendship, I mean, that's important to me, but even just outside of our friendship, I just thought the way that he approached adding value to somebody's life and leading with value, and then just, I don't know if he thought anything would come of it, but just the fact that he led with value and then it's gotten to where it is now is a perfect illustration of how we've talked about adding value in the past. And
Yeah.
and Caleb, again, outside of our friendship and the relationship we have now, man, knocked it out of the park with that one. So
Yeah.
let that serve as an example of how to add value and then it turning into something that could be beneficial, excuse me, for you and other people you're trying to serve and connect with. It's just a perfect illustration of how to do it. It really
Yeah.
is.
And I'm assuming at the root of it was the fact that it was genuine.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
he wasn't
he wasn't
like,
trying to game it for
yeah, let me
sure.
try to game Ryan to
Yeah,
be,
great point.
to get something out of him. He was genuine. Like
Yeah,
he
exactly.
cared about what you were doing and wanted to help.
Well, it's genuine on both parts. Like he cares about
Yeah.
what I'm doing. I
Well,
care
I
about
wasn't
him.
saying that. I think he's genuine, but
That's why I brought it up because I knew you weren't saying that. I figured
yeah,
I ought
yeah.
to bring it up on my
I,
end.
I
But yeah,
figured.
I mean, it's genuine. I want him. I mean, I value our relationship, but I want him to have a good experience with his fiance and their marriage, and I care about both of them. And so, anyways, it was just a cool
That's
experience that I
cool.
think illustrates what we've been talking about for years at this point. And by the way, it's March of 2021. That means, and I don't know the exact date. I'd have to go back and look. That means we're at our 6-year anniversary this month
So the podcast started in March
of 2015. Yeah,
of 2015.
that's right. Yep. I
That's
think it was towards
crazy.
the end. I want to say maybe the 25th, 26th, somewhere right in there. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you need to get that date figured out.
I don't know, man. I'm not too worried
I
about
think
that.
it's no, I think it's a milestone. I don't know.
It
I'd like
is.
to know.
It is. But I've never been one to get wrapped up in that stuff too much. I
Yeah.
think it's important. I'm not trying to discount it. I'm just saying, like, okay, well, there's the day. I mean, you could pick any day and say, well, it's the 18th or the 26th. It doesn't really matter. It's arbitrary. But
Yeah.
it is cool. That said, it is cool that we've been going for 6 years, and I know how many people we've served and helped, and that's pretty cool.
So our questions are coming from Instagram today, and there's a handful of questions around the canoe. So I figured, while we're bantering, why don't you just give us an update? There's a couple of guys that were asking about, what top lesson learned and when do you plan on dropping it into the water?
So
And if
it's
yeah,
well, I'm actually a little hesitant at times to talk about the canoe because I think sometimes it turns into the jiu-jitsu thing where guys are like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, you talk
Yeah.
about that all the time." So I've thought to myself, well, maybe they're sick of hearing about it. But actually, I get a lot of questions and emails, and it sounds like we've got a bunch of questions today or several.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the canoe is coming along. The entire canoe is stemmed, which means that all the strips are, excuse me, I said stemmed. Stripped is what I meant to say, or hulled is probably the more accurate term. But all of the cedar strips are laid and in place. One of the things that we did at the very first was you have to bend and steam the stems, and the stems are the ends of the boat on the bow and the stern that bend around that make the front of it. So you have an
Yeah.
inner stem and then you have an outer stem. So you bend the inner stem, then you shape it to a V, and then that's what the actual strips, the cedar strips, are connecting to. So that's all cured and hardened. And then once that's done, then you reattach the outer stem that you bent with the inner stem, and you carve this little mortise where it slides into. And then you shape that down. So all of that's done. So we just pulled the staples. I had all four of my kids downstairs yesterday pulling staples, and they loved it. So we pulled out the staples. I planed it. So in between each cedar strip, so they're running horizontal at this point,
Yeah.
and there's little ridges where they connect, right? Because it's kind of like, bending around the shape of the molds. So you plane all those little ridges out, and then you sand it all down so it's just smooth. And we got our very first look at what it could potentially look like just yesterday. It
Looks
looks
cool.
so
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So
I saw
now
your
we have
last
to go
picture on
in.
Instagram. I was
Dude,
like,
it looks
that's
so
looking
amazing.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So this week we'll go in, we'll finish sanding, getting it just prepped exactly looking the way that we want. And then we go in with an epoxy resin. It's called catalyzed epoxy. That means basically the hardener has been mixed into it. And we'll fill in any little gaps and little holes that there might exist between the planks and things like that. And then you tint it with the sawdust so it actually matches the color of the canoe itself, because otherwise it's just a clear epoxy. So you
Yeah.
tint it with sawdust, and then that'll cure for a day or two, and then we're ready to move to fiberglass. So we put a fiberglass sheet over it, epoxy over that fiberglass, and then the outside of the hole is basically done.
Will the fiberglass cover up the color? Like I love the way it looks. Is it
Yeah,
going to
no,
look
the
like that?
fiberglass will not, because it's a lot of
Okay.
people think when you think about fiberglass, you're thinking of like white
Solid.
fiberglass, right?
Yeah.
This is basically, it looks like a bed sheet is what it looks like. And you
Okay.
lay it on, and it's kind of a cloudy, murky white color. But once you lay the epoxy on, the fiberglass is actually transparent. So you will
Okay.
see the wood color.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I love the look of the
Yeah, you have
strips.
to have it
Yeah.
wood.
It
I'm
looks
thinking
awesome.
about burning the Order of Man logo into it somehow. So we're
Mm.
still contemplating on
Yeah.
that a little bit.
All right. Last
So,
question from a curiosity perspective. Why take the staples out? I mean, wouldn't they help just
well, so the
keep
state,
everything
okay.
together?
So they do while the glue is curing and hardening.
Yeah.
And then once you take the staples out, they're no longer necessary. But the staples are actually stapled. You staple them into the hole, and then they staple down into the molds. And the mold of a canoe
And you're
is
taking
those
the
like,
molds. Yeah. And
right.
you're
The
taking the
molds
molds
don't
away.
stay.
So you got to get rid of those staples. Okay. Got it.
Right. So the
Yeah.
molds basically look like, if you've seen them, they kind of look like a mushroom shape. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And you're
you got,
wrapping the boat around the mold.
that's right. The molds are
Okay.
there to give you the shape. And once you have the shape, then you pull those out. And
Got
then
it.
the epoxy with the fiberglass hardens and it maintains its shape.
Okay. Okay.
Now, that being said, there are different canoes and boats that have, I actually don't know the exact term, but I would call them ribs,
It
where
has a frame.
it has
Yeah.
a
Inside.
rib frame that comes up, but this particular style does not have that wooden frame or those ribs to it.
Not even halfway.
None.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
just the strips. But again, you're hardening the inside with the fiberglass and the epoxy, and also you do that to the inside too. So it's
Yeah.
got a fiberglass inside, then it has the wood. Well, so if you're working from the outside to the inside of the canoe, here's the layers: epoxy resin, fiberglass, wood strips, fiberglass, epoxy resin.
Got it.
So it's going to be pretty firm.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
Okay. And then the last one was, When do you guys, what's your estimated drop date?
So I would say like end of April. We probably will have it done in the next 30 to 45 days, I would say.
Yeah.
And I only say that because I've got a job. Like if you know, and
Yeah.
there's also things that I'm waiting for. Like I'm waiting for the fiberglass right now, which should be here in 3 or 4 days. So it'll be a little while. And then the ice has to break up too on the lakes. So I got to wait for that as well. So yeah,
Yeah. Good point.
yeah.
Cool, man.
But spring will be ready to go.
All right. We address all the questions. So
All right.
to
That's it,
support the
guys. Thanks for
podcast,
asking the
just
questions.
leave a comment.
Buy our stuff,
about
join
the
the Iron Council,
Jiu-jitsu.
share, do all those stuff. Jiu-jitsu. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Should we jump into it?
Yeah.
All right. So Ag Snyder, what are some key ways to avoid temptation with my girlfriend, especially in the heat of the moment? So temptation with her, not, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think this is only applicable, right, to a handful of guys. Maybe the other,
I think it should
maybe
be
we
applicable
add
to more,
to it
but I think I
is,
know what he's saying.
yeah, but maybe we add to it is just avoid temptation with the opposite sex, period, even if you're married. I mean, in his case, it looks like they're dating and
They're
he's
trying to wait. Right.
Yeah, trying to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I commend you for doing that because look,
you're a dying breed,
exactly
sir.
right. You're a dying breed. You're exactly right. It's challenging. It's tough. Society says it's not important. I actually think it is important. My wife and I waited because that was important for us. I'm not going to say it wasn't challenging or we didn't toe up against that line at times, but you know, we waited because it was an important decision for us. And I hear so many guys are like, "Oh, move in, test drive before." No, I don't believe in any of that. If you do, cool. I just think it sets you up and tees you up for failure in relationships. So to this guy, I commend you for making that decision. It's tough. I know it is. What I would say is that obviously when you guys are alone, you're at your place or her place, that's where the temptation is obviously going to be the highest. So if that's where you're tempted, then put the boundaries in place. You know, maybe it's a curfew that you establish. Hey, I'm not going to stay past 11 o'clock or whatever the time is, right?
Yeah.
Or that, you know,
Holy Ghost goes to bed at 10.
Is that's the rule, right? You know, so, or, you know, when you're alone, so maybe instead of doing, you know, things alone, you have friends over and you're always doing stuff with friends. But look, the temptation is there. It's high. Obviously, I get it. It's natural. It's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're not physically attracted to your wife, like what the hell is wrong with both of you? So I would just say, look for wherever you're tempted the greatest and you've made this decision to commit to each other, to wait, to honor those decisions that you guys both have made, I'm assuming, then you just got to not put yourself in that situation. That's it.
Yeah.
Like if you're alone and it's in the evening and you're in the bedroom and the door is closed, like that's what's going to happen. We all know that's what's going to happen. So don't do that. Now to broaden it out, Kipp, to what you were saying, if you're addicted to alcohol, you're an alcoholic. Okay, well, you know when that happens, right? If you go to the convenience store, you go to a store, you go to the liquor store, you drive by the liquor store on your way home, or there's alcohol in the cupboards. I mean, come on, you know. So don't tee yourself up for failure. That's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah.
So look at what those temptations are, figure out when they happen, how they happen, when you're most tempted, when you're most vulnerable, and then make a plan, make a strategy so that you don't put yourself in that environment and you're going to have a better time. I would also say that you should make a plan for dealing with the temptation in the moment and do it now before you're in the heat of the moment. Yeah. So if it's tempted to sleep with your girlfriend or your fiance and you've made that decision not to, okay, well, when you get in the heat of the moment, right now, you got to decide, what is it that's going to keep me, like, what's my strategy? Is it to leave? Is it to go home? Is it to go take a cold shower? Like, what is my actual strategy for avoiding this? Same thing with drinking. If you know that when you go out with the guys and you all get shit faced, okay, well, what are you going to do when somebody asks you if you'd like to have a drink? Make that plan today, right now, when you're not in the heat of the moment, so that when you are in the heat of the moment, that's what you default to. There's a great quote by Archaeolocus, and I think the Navy SEALs adopted this quote, and it says, "We do not rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training." And that applies to your temptations. You're going to fall to the level of your strategy and your default and your plan of action. You're not going to step up to the plate in the heat of the moment. You're just not. You're going to fall back to your default. So establish those defaults now so you can resist when you need to.
Yeah. You know, I was going to crack a joke that, you know, when I think about what prevents me and my wife from being physically with each other, I'm like, oh, it's just kids. So just invite some kids over and that should ruin all opportunity that you have in life.
My kids and I know, I don't know if there's some sort of like hormone detector in them, or it gets, you know, how sometimes with your kids, you hear them and there's an acceptable volume range where if it's too loud, you're like, something's wrong, got to go address that.
Yeah.
If it's too quiet, also something's wrong, got to go address that. There's this tolerant level.
Quiet's more dangerous usually.
Yes. So I think they must have the same thing too, because if mom and dad have the bedroom door closed and it's too quiet, they're like, what's going on in
Something's
there?
going on.
Figure out what's happening. Most of the time,
I got to go bother them.
It's like 80-20 sleep, sex. So whatever. But yeah.
You can borrow my kids. They'll ruin any opportunity that you and your girlfriend have.
And if you have twins, like that's not double the trouble. That's like quadruple or more the trouble. Yeah. I've got a couple of friends with twins. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
You're like, God, that's going to be about 12 years for you guys. Yeah.
At least. All right. What's
All
next?
Right. Aaron Hopka, how do you turn society around to create a larger brotherhood of men similar to Order of Man, but at a larger scale? Aaron, we just make Order of Man at a larger scale, but what's the game plan? How do we turn society around, or what can Aaron and the other guys do?
That you're doing it, you know, you're part of this. Sometimes it doesn't move as fast as we would like. And, it is just what it is. It takes time to get off the ground, you know? So you are part of it. We are trying to continue to grow the presence of what we're doing here. We are expanding our reach and having more qualified and powerful guests on the podcast. We're talking about different topics. I'm broaching discussions and topics and points that a lot of people don't want to have or aren't comfortable with. But I think the best thing that you can do is listen to what we're doing here, apply what we're doing, and then invite others to listen to. You know, the more men in your circle who are listening to what we're doing, they're reading the book, they're listening to the podcast, you know, they're repping the merchandise, as trivial as that may sound. You guys are going to rally behind that. I think about even with merchandise, again, it sounds trivial, but why do football teams or any sports teams wear uniforms? Why does the military have a uniform? It's not like you're hiding in the forest so people can't see you. So why do we wear these uniforms? It's to unite us for a common good, for a common purpose. And so wearing an Order of Man hat or wearing an Order of Man shirt, somebody's going to see that. You know, I've been stopped. In fact, a week ago, I was stopped at the gas station and I had my Order of Man sticker on the back of my truck. And a guy pulled up to the pump next to me and he's like, hey, are you Ryan? I said, yeah, I am. He's like, oh, I thought so, man. I knew you lived here. I saw your decal and I got my decal on the back too. And I went around the back of his truck and sure enough, he had his Order of Man decal right in the window.
That's cool.
That unites us towards a common purpose, which is to protect, provide, preside. So, use the materials that we have and then just spread the mission. You know, if everybody who listened, let's say there's hundreds of thousands of people. Let's say, I don't know, let's say it's 500,000. Let's just say it for the sake of argument. And everybody today just shared this podcast or a post that we made or whatever it may be. One person shared with one person, that would be 1 million. The next day, everybody shared it with another person, that would be 2 million, then 4 million, then 8 million, then 16 million, then 32 million. And so my math's getting away from me at this point. So I'll just stop there. But it spreads very, very quickly. This is the power of exponential growth. So be the example, invite people to listen. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's the other thing. Guys are like, oh, let's reinvent the wheel. Let's create our own thing. I commend you if you want to create your own thing, but damn, we've been doing this for 6 years. You know, Kipp, you got the book behind you. I've got 700 plus podcasts in the bank, thousands and thousands of social media posts, hundreds of thousands of people banded on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else. It's all here.
The mission is clear. Yeah. Clear. It's been defined.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just, and if maybe a challenge to Aaron and the other guys, I mean, and this is our ask, obviously, every week is like, share this message, but like kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit too. And, go out of your way, right? And look for those guys that are like-minded and invite them to join us, right? Join the movement with us. And then the other thing is, what inspires me or kind of gets me pumped up is be the kind of man that people are like, Aaron, what the hell are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing? Because I want some of that. Be that kind of man. So then that way you're a lighthouse. So people are coming to you for guidance and direction, and they want whatever it is that you're taking.
Yeah.
And then that way, that's how we change the world, right? That's how we leave a lasting impact.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so, we have guys in the Facebook group, for example, who have lost weight. And I'm just using that because that's a very easy example, because somebody's going to see that externally. They're going to see a guy that's lost 50 pounds and they're going to wonder, hey, you look great, man. What have you been doing? If you don't have a framework for them to go to, it's still valuable. Hey, I've been doing X, Y, and Z. But if you don't have a framework for them to go to, like order of man, then it's not going to fall on deaf ears, but it just isn't as tangible.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, if you said, oh, I read this book called Sovereignty, or I listened to this podcast and it inspired me, and I think you ought to listen to it too. And here's what they talk about. And they got their 30 days to battle ready program. And I actually just used that, and that helped me. And I used the battle planner, and that got me on track. Well, then there's something that for people to actually sink their teeth into.
Yeah.
And that's why what we do is so valuable. It's not because what we're doing is offering advice or suggestions that you haven't heard before. I don't think that you and I, Kipp, have ever shared anything that isn't already been shared and articulated in some way, right? But the way we create a framework, something for people to latch onto and sink their teeth into, and so it becomes more tangible and easier to follow and implement. So if you're doing it good, if you've used our resources, then share what resources you're using so people can do the same in their own lives.
Yeah. Brian Edward Hoover, how do you identify imposter syndrome in yourself and the difference between that and situations where you've just reached too far too fast? Additionally, what tactics do you recommend for dealing with those feelings of inferiority?
Yeah, so I would be really careful of saying like, oh, I must have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I think what you're doing is you're looking for things to be wrong. And then to go back to what I was saying earlier is you're making it tangible. It isn't really necessary other than to
label
identify
things so quickly.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Maybe just to identify what you're dealing with is, I would say, a positive benefit of that. But I feel the same way with when guys say, well, I'm an introvert. Like, why would you say that? Now everything that you're going to do is going to reassure what you believe yourself about.
Yeah.
So are you introverted? Maybe. Is it scary or difficult or uncomfortable for you to talk with people that you don't know? Maybe. But let's not put a label on it that actually is more of self-fulfilling prophecy than anything else. So in the spirit of the question, what I would say is not worry so much about placing a label on it, but just ask yourself, hey, is the self-doubt that I have, because isn't that at the root of imposter syndrome, is self-doubt?
Yeah.
So the self-doubt that I have is keeping me from doing what I want to do. And I think that's a healthy thing to consider. And then you can address it. Okay, so yeah, I'm nervous about putting myself out there, or I doubt that I can do this job, or I doubt that I can thrive in this way, or I don't have a track record of success because I've never done this, but I'm trying something new. All right, well, that's healthy. There's nothing wrong with that, but just play it out. Just play it out. Okay. Just admit the truth. And I'll go back to the canoe, as much as I'm hesitant again for the reason I told you earlier. It's like people are like, oh, how long have you been doing woodworking? Guys, I have no woodworking experience ever. I may have built a shelf or a workbench here or there, but that's it. I don't have any woodworking experience. Does that mean I'm an imposter? No, it just means like, okay, I'm figuring it out. And so my approach to things that I don't know is not, oh, I'm an imposter, I shouldn't be doing this. It's like, I have no idea how to do this, but I want to figure it out. And that's a more healthy approach to not knowing things or to have self-doubt, because you actually might be right. Like you don't know, but does that mean you're an imposter? No, it just means that you're an amateur or you're a novice and you need to figure it out. And it's a healthier way of looking at it than saying, I have imposter syndrome. No, you have beginner syndrome, which is you
Yeah,
just feel
you have
inadequate
no
with yourself.
experience. Yeah,
Exactly.
which is good that you're humble and you realize you
Right.
don't,
There's
because
nothing
then
wrong
now
with
you're
that.
trying it. Yeah. Yeah, it's not
Now,
necessarily wrong.
if you're feeling so bad about yourself or so inadequate about yourself that you won't do it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, well, even if it's subconscious, well, I've never done this before, so I'm not going to go. That's ego. That's your ego speaking. Instead, say, and by the way, you can deliberately decide this because you want to. I've never done this before, and that's actually a part of the reason I should do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be okay with learning. I'm going to be okay with fumbling it up and messing it up here and there. And I'll just figure it out along the way. Jiu-jitsu is the same way. We have a lot of guys who say, hey, I'm going to take jiu-jitsu class for the first time. What lesson do you have for me? Or what tips do you have for me? Just go with an open heart and open mind. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have any tips. I don't have any tricks or any strategies or any submissions or any fundamentals you need to know. You're going to learn all that. Just baseline, go with an open heart and an open mind and figure it out along the way, because that's what everybody else has done who's ever gone before you.
Yeah.
And be okay with sucking.
Yeah. Leave
Like,
the
it's
ego at the
okay.
door. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even make fun of yourself. I remember in jiu-jitsu when I'd get, submitted by somebody, I would just play with it, like, holy cow, that was awesome. Like, I didn't even see that coming. Like, that's amazing. I thought I was capable, like, just play with it. It's okay. It's okay, guys. Like, just let it down for a minute and just, I hate to say, be vulnerable. It's not that. It's just like, just be okay with not being awesome sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you don't, you're not going to show up again. You're going to give
Well,
up.
that's the beauty of
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, man.
Yeah. Forces humility.
Yeah. I mean, these big, strong, athletic dudes will come into class once, maybe twice, and they'll never come back. Good.
Because
I want to know. I want to know who's going to have ego or who's going to be humble enough to be part of the band. I want to know that. In jiu-jitsu and other facets of life, weed that stuff out very quickly.
Yeah. All right. Patriotic Eagle. Do you believe that society will ever swing back to a more traditional and rugged state of individualism and freedom? If so, what would it take to get there?
Freedom will always prevail. It will always. We can voluntarily decide that we want to go that path. Right now, we can say, hey, you know what? We're going to make a stand. We're going to stand up for freedom. We're going to stand up for freedom of speech. We're going to give people, we're going to protect people's right to defend themselves. We're going to acknowledge that people might have differing opinions than us. And although we may not have to agree or like what they have to say, we should defend their right to say it. We can decide that right now. We can make those decisions voluntarily. Or alternatively, we can reject those ideas because we're too weak and we're too timid and we're too passive and too scared or too complacent, which is actually the real root of it. And let those who would love control and power and authority over you continue to do what they do until we've had enough. And that's going to be violent. It's going to be dangerous. Quite literally, millions, hundreds of millions of people have died throughout human history because of the direction that we're going right now. And yeah, freedom will always prevail. It's just a matter of if we're willing to get out ahead of it. Because if we don't, then people will die. And that isn't hyperbole. When I say things like that, people are like, oh, you're fear mongering. It ain't fear mongering.
That's history.
It's history. Yeah. Go look at what happened throughout all of history and all of cultures to what happened to individuals who let go of their freedoms, who let the power hungry get control and too much authority. Go look and see what happened and how that played out. People died. And not just died, horrific, tragic, miserable circumstances that people have suffered because the power hungry continue to attempt to consolidate that power. We can get out ahead of it right now and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to relinquish our rights to our firearms. I don't like what that person says, but I will defend that person's right to say it. I'm not going to cancel that person. I'm not going to go after their income. I'm not going to attempt to dox them. I'm not going to mock them, ridicule them, intimidate them to being quiet. I'll have discussions with them if I feel so inclined, but I'm not going to use any of these tactics because I believe in the power of free speech. I believe in the power of individuals that can defend and protect themselves and pursue their own way of life. And I don't have to agree with it, but I'm going to defend it. And we can decide that now, or we can have the consequence of not doing that thrust upon us, and it will be dark and dangerous and deadly. Yeah. So I fear, my greatest fear to the point of this question is that we will collectively wait until people have died and people are subjugated and we're taxed to the hilt and we're told how to live our lives and what we can do. Like I listened to the president talk about, if you do X, Y, and Z, then maybe you can have a 4th of July with some of your
house.
Small F off. I can do whatever I want to do.
Oh my goodness.
And you know what? Millions of people are like, oh yay, cheer, celebrate. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. And only when the majority of people say, no, this is not how it works. And you are to serve me, not me individually, but us collectively. And you're not doing it right now. And there's consequences to that. And when we let these individuals feel the full weight of the consequences of doing what they should not be doing, that's when we'll begin to make the changes. We're not there yet, unfortunately, but we ought to get there quick. Otherwise, it's going to get nasty.
I shouldn't have to point this out, but I just feel like I think we lose what freedom is. And to this person's question, it's individualism, it's sovereignty. There is no freedom in the space of like not trusting people to make the decisions on their own, right? Like security, safety, and putting constraints in place to take care of people and not have them take care of themselves. Those things are often in conflict with each other. And it just blows my mind how acceptable, to your point, like we watch the news and we hear things like a president saying, oh, we're going to hopefully get kids back to school. Really? You have a say when my neighborhood is choosing when my kid goes to elementary school? Really? A guy in Washington, D.C. knows what's best for my neighborhood and for the kids in my neighborhood and my own children? But it blows my mind how we all, like so many people, think that's the case, that they actually like, oh yeah, I sure hope so. Like they're giving over their freedom for security and they're taking no responsibility in things. So not only do we need to do that, like have that mentality, but we also have to believe in mankind. We actually have to believe in people to make the decisions of what's best for themselves. I'm not saying we can't serve people, but you can't force people's hand. And when government attempts to do that, almost all the time, there's an exact correlation of freedoms being lost. And it's up to us to decide.
And there has to be consequences to your decisions. You know, if you make bad life decisions, then there has to be a weight associated with that. And it's hard and it's painful. I have personal friends and family members that have made bad choices, and I feel for them. I really do. And I attempt to help to the degree that I can as an individual. I don't feel it's the government's job. It's my job as a friend and family member. I made a post on Instagram the other day. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your friends, your neighbors, then your community, in that order. It isn't the government's job to come in and rescue people. It's just to create a level playing field or ensure there's a level playing field and then get the hell out of the way. Like, these are the rules. We're out. Right? It's not equity, which is equal outcome. It's equality. Let's just make sure that everybody's equal under the law, that we all have the rights that we have been born into, and that we can pursue our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And along with that, some people are going to make bad choices. Yep. And some people are going to get hurt. And some people are going to live miserable existences because they've made bad choices.
And by the way, it's not like those same people are going to live an amazing life because there's a government program
that handheld
them.
Of course not. Well,
There's
and
no
that's
difference between those two.
yeah, you're exactly right. In fact, it'll only get worse, but
Yeah.
because it spills over into other people. But yeah, I believe in humans, individuals. I believe that individuals, A, can make the right choices, B, learn from their mistakes, and C, that will be gracious and charitable with their own resources and time and attention. If one of my neighbors was dealing with a medical condition or had a financial situation, you don't think I'd go down there and help that person out around the house or invite their kids over or lend them a little bit of money to be able to help them make the mortgage payment? You're damn right I would do that.
Yeah.
And I have
And
done that.
and
And I
think
think
about
most people would do that.
and think about the difference for that neighbor. Okay, so you have two scenarios. Their neighborhood or their community pulls together and helps them versus I get a handout from the government.
Right.
What perception or feeling about myself is different in those two circumstances? Right?
Yeah, well,
I get a feeling of self-worth, of people caring,
yes.
like obligation to my community.
Obligation.
All those things happen when I get a check from the government.
Right.
I'm not better off.
Right.
I might have cash in my pocket, but I didn't learn anything. I didn't get more valued. I didn't go, oh, geez, you know what? The federal government gave me a stimulus check. You know what? I am loved.
Yeah.
No, that's not present to us.
And I think you hit on the right thing when you were talking about obligation, because now I have to look that person in the eye. Actually, more importantly, that person needs to look me in the eye and know that I lent him $1,000 to get some groceries or the mortgage payment. And he has to look at me every day.
Yep. And what is he going to do?
He's not going
to flander that, right?
Right.
He's going to go, you know what? I better get my shit together because I feel guilty every single time I see Ryan.
Yes.
If I'm
and
not
that's
using
exactly
that money
right.
wisely. Yeah.
That should be his attitude. That should be what he's experiencing. I had a very close friend, and I won't name any names, but had an opportunity to present himself, was in a bit of a financial bind at the time, but wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. And he had proven himself in the past that he was trustworthy. And he reached out to me and said, hey, man, I really want to take advantage of this opportunity. Unfortunately, financially, I'm not in the position to be able to do it. Would you help me? And I said, yeah, of course, I will help you, because he'd proven and we built up a friendship and he had been trustworthy with me in the past. And so I lent him a little bit of money. Wasn't a lot. Lent him a little bit of money. And we came up with some terms on how he's going to pay that back. And he paid it back like immediately. Like within a couple of months, he paid it back. And there was some other opportunities that came from him for us, but also from him because he was able to take advantage of that opportunity. This is the value of being able to serve other people. And by the way, putting yourself into a situation where you can. I had a guy message me yesterday on Instagram and he said, hey, again, not naming names, but he said, hey, I feel like at some point it's getting closer to where I may be asked to jeopardize my morals at my work. What would you do in this situation? I said, get your financial house in order right now. Like get your money dialed in, build up a bank account, build up reserves, start investing, build a side income. I remember years ago, one of my very first coaches that I ever hired told me about a story, and he wanted to leave his financial planning practice. He was working with another organization at the time, and he went to his boss at the time and told him what he was planning on doing. And the boss was very dismissive of it. And eventually my coach at the time told his boss, he said, you know what? I'd rather live in a cardboard box than be your bitch for the rest of my life. And he marched out of the door, and he's making hundreds of millions of dollars a year now. And he taught me the term of an FU fund. And so he has $1 million on hand.
So he could say F you to whoever he wants.
At any time, at any point, he can say F you. If he's tempted to jeopardize his morals or asked to do something out of line with his integrity, he can say F you, because he has the financial sovereignty to be able to do it. Yeah. And this individual who I talked with on social media doesn't have that power right now. And because he doesn't have that power, when somebody asks him to jeopardize his morals, he'll be more likely to do it because he doesn't have things in place where he can't say F you and walk away and stand by his convictions. Guys, we've been talking about it. Like, so I think this goes back to the question that he was asking, like, what can we do? Get your financial affairs in order, get your house in order, get your fitness in check, get everything dialed in, build some skills, build a network, get everything dialed in, and then teach other people how to do it.
Libby W. Mates, what character traits do you look for in potential brothers/men do you stand shoulder to shoulder with? I'm trying to build a solid community of men around me and want to know what to look for a start.
I would look for humility. That's a really important one. Somebody who's humble. If it's a know-it-all, I'm not interested. And now, if it's somebody who knows a lot, but they're still humble, that's different. But a know-it-all is different than somebody who knows a lot and is humble.
Yeah.
Humility is important. Loyalty is important. Integrity is important to me. I'll call it hardness, but that would include strength and grit and resilience and fortitude. We'll just call it hardness. That's what I would look for in an individual. And then successful. You know, I want people in my corner who are hyper successful on different fronts, whether it's financially or within their family. Maybe it's a set of skills that they have, their ability to grow their business, their bank account, their fitness. I want successful people. So again, humility. What did I say? Humility, success, integrity, honor, loyalty, and hardness. That's what I would look for.
Would you add? The only thing I would add to it, and I'm asking if you would add it, is just hungry. You know, hungry for more.
Yeah, I think that's good.
They're
Like
kind of passionate
and
ambitious. Yeah.
I think that's good.
Because you could have successful people and they're in their life and they're just kind of like, like floating along, and that doesn't sound appealing to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's 1,000 virtues and characteristics that we can list out. Just go down the list. But I agree with that. They're hungry, they're passionate, they're ambitious. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. We talked earlier when one of the questions is like, the momentum around this movement and creating a broader brotherhood. Maybe something to mention is future order man events coming out this year. I think that's a pivotal point and thing to just to bring up briefly.
Yeah. So in the fall, I've got 3 events on my mind. I don't have the dates pinned down, but we're going to do a fall main event, which is, we'll usually have about 100 guys out here to my property in Maine. So we'll do that in the fall. We're also going to do a legacy event. That's a father-son event, father-like son event. That means you could be an uncle and you've got boys that need your help or something.
And we've had that in the past, which is super cool.
Very cool. Yeah. Or their stepfather or adopted children, that sort of thing. And then one of the things that I'd really like to do in the winter of next year, so I'm thinking probably January, February next year, is do a extreme cold version of the
main event.
Not the main event, because that's the bigger 100-guy event. I'm thinking the uprising event. So that's 28 guys. And we'll just come out here and we'll freeze our balls off for 3 days, but we'll put some meaning behind it. So we're not just freezing. There's actual purpose behind it. We'll build snow forts and we'll do some ice fishing, and we'll do some hikes, and we'll just suffer for 3 days.
And if you lose a finger, you get a badge.
Good. Good. It makes you more of a man. That's that hardness that we were talking about.
I love it. Cool. So stay tuned. Maybe even subscribe, go to orderofman.com.
Yeah. Get on the newsletter list. Like if you go to we've been sending out weekly emails for the past 3 or 4 weeks now at this point. And I've gotten a lot of positive response on that. So if you're interested in receiving those emails, or you're interested in learning about the events that we have coming up, then orderofman.com. Whatever page you're on, there's usually a sidebar or something where you can drop your name and email address, and we'll make sure we get you all those details.
Cool. All right. One arm everything. Do you meditate? And if so, what for? I'm thinking about giving it a try, but I don't know where to start. So many videos, but don't ever know what to believe anymore. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really meditate.
You're not a meditator. Yeah.
No, not in the formal sense of like sit down and put on like a music or an app or something. Like I don't do that.
Yeah.
I think there's value to that. I'm not interested, frankly, but there are some meditative circumstances that I find myself, or that I put myself in, yesterday as I'm working on the canoe, that actually is very meditative to me, because I will sit down there and I will either sand or work with my spoke shave and shave the wood down. And I might be in quiet, or I might be listening to some music. And frankly, I'm not really thinking about anything else. I'm just letting it flow, just wherever it goes. I find
Yeah.
myself in the same way when it comes to archery. So I have targets outside and I'll go out there and I'll shoot 40, 50, 60 arrows, whatever it may be. And I'm thinking about the arrow and the path of the arrow and just trying to improve, but letting my thoughts, go wherever they go. I find myself that way with jiu-jitsu and even just walking around the field. I find myself doing
Running
that.
does that for
Not,
some people. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't run personally, but like if I'm just walking around the field, like just I don't have any objective. Like I don't go into it like, oh, I gotta figure out this plan. I just go into it. I do that at some point, but not when I'm walking. Like just think, like just be present. And sometimes I'll look at the mountains and be inspired by the mountains, or I'll
Yeah.
walk a little bit into the woods out of the path and just look at the different kind of trees and the knots that the vines create and things like that. So that's what it is for me. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as like sitting down and doing a meditative, like 15 minutes of silence, like, yeah, I've never done it like that. So
Yeah. I actually meditate. I use, what's the, oh my dear Lord.
there's like Headspace, I think is
Headspace
one.
is one of
Calm,
the
I think is
like
one.
guided meditations.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the key thing is just focus on controlling your mind, like we talk about Jim Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh. And it's funny how often we blow off that control, right? It's like we take no ownership over what we're pondering about. So, and I think that's what meditation does is it's a practice of controlling one's mind, and I think you could do that in all kinds of examples, whether it's through working or running. But in fact, I was watching, maybe I shouldn't make reference to this. So I was watching this movie, Chaos Walking. I even know how I ended up with this. Oh, we went to the movies and it was like the only movie
I
that
haven't even
was
heard
in
of
the
it.
movie theater. Yeah, it's weird. But these guys, they end up on a planet and their thoughts are, you can hear each other's thoughts.
Mm,
So like you and I are just walking around, and you can hear what you're
that would be
pondering
trouble.
about. Yeah. Yeah. And I thought about it. It's like, and there's obviously moments in this movie where this kid can't shut his mind off.
Mhm.
Right. And people can keep hearing him and he can't like keep a secret. He can't do anything because he can't turn off his head. And I'm like,
Right.
he needs to practice meditating. It's like, come on, you can't control your mind, and I really made me think about like how often we don't think that, right? We don't take ownership over our thought process and what we're pondering about. And I think meditation is a good way to kind of practice that.
That's a good point. That actually goes
Yeah.
back to what we were talking about with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people who will get in their heads in a negative way and they'll just spiral out of control. Well, I'm not good at this. I don't deserve it. And they'll just keep going. It's like, just tap the brakes in your mind.
Yeah.
Tap the brakes. Okay. Yes. You don't know. You aren't good at this. Okay.
That's
So
okay. Yeah.
yes. Now let's redirect it to, instead of using that as a self-sabotaging mechanism, use it as a self-serving mechanism. Oh, I don't know, but I would like to find out. I don't know how to do this. Okay, well, what would it take to figure it out? Oh, well, I can go watch this YouTube video or I can buy this instructional manual. And then you start using your mind and channeling your mind towards productive outcomes. And isn't that a beautiful thing about being a human being? I think we talked about this on Friday's Iron Council call.
Yeah.
Like one of the differences between us and every other beast is, I use deer as an example. A deer can't make a conscious decision of why it does what it does. It's just instinctual.
It just does.
It hears something, it feels something. I mean, even the moon will affect deer eating habits and patterns, but they don't know why it does. It just does. And so they react to their instinct to that. And that's all it is.
No self-reflection. Yeah.
None whatsoever. We can do that. We can self-reflect. Oh, well, I think I should do this, but why should I do this? Well, what if I did the other thing? And if I was going to do the other thing, how much more effective would that be? So we have this beautiful tool called conscious thought, and it's deliberate and it can be intentional. And yet so many of us don't utilize it, and we act no better, no different than the deer who just acts instinctually out of fear or at its base level, just trying to stay alive. Well, we're past that.
You know what I really like? Because I've always used our ability to self-reflect or internalize. It's really, if you think about it, it's the power to create.
Hmm.
And we can create.
Yeah.
And we can take any moment and create it. We can create that meaning. We can create what that means. It's the power of creation, mental creation. I like that.
I like it. I think that's
Good job, Kipp.
Yeah, that's
Good stuff.
amazing.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
You're
It's
rubbing off
incredible.
on me, man.
Well, I
Good
don't think that
ideas are
came from
flowing.
me. I'm going to give that one to you 100%. I like that.
Pat my own back. All right, Austiny.
The reason I
36.
didn't, by the way, the reason I didn't respond immediately to you
because you're
finishing that up,
yeah.
no, it's because I wrote it down. When you were talking, I was writing it down. I'm like, that's actually really good. So that's why I didn't respond immediately. It was that impactful in my life, Kipp.
All right, now I'm feeling embarrassed. Geez, stop.
No, don't, man. That's good.
No, stop.
All right, let's go. Let's drive on.
Okay,
We're both embarrassing ourselves here at this point.
Austiny 36. What are your thoughts on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson running for president? Did he announce this?
I don't know. I mean, I think probably if he ran for
Austin,
president,
we're not up to speed.
He would probably win if he ran.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about his politics. I know that he endorsed our current president, so that makes me wary. But outside of that, I don't know enough about his politics. Look, I mean, here's the deal. Here's what I believe in. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in those individuals who will support and defend all aspects of the Constitution, not pick and choose what they like and what they think. I believe in individuals' right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think the government's role is to defend the borders and leave everybody the hell alone.
Yeah.
And I believe in personal responsibility.
Yeah. And I think that not the last one, personal responsibility, but leaving people alone is the Achilles heel of most presidents.
Right.
Because they have to give into the social pressures of like, oh, I'm going to implement something to fix the masses that are too stupid to decide something on their, like, it's all about the feel goods, man. I mean, I don't know. I think every president difficult. I mean, it would be, how amazing would it be for a president to go, so what are you going to do about this, Mr. President? And they go, nothing. That's their choice.
Yes.
We're going to get out of the way.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome? That's actually that's not in our responsibility and purview. So we're actually not going to do anything about that. Yeah. I would like that.
Yeah. We're going to get out of the way.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. We believe and we trust in our people to do the right things for their communities and for themselves.
Yep. I would vote
or even the states, even if they said that on the states, we trust the states to implement their necessary laws that are part of the union. Oh man.
Yeah. I look at it a little bit as the government's job in a way is just to clear the path a little bit.
Yeah.
Not totally, because I think people need to make their own paths, but just remove the obstacles and the barriers, so that's external threats from foreign countries, things like that. But ultimately it's just, okay, here's the playing field. You guys utilize it the way that you want. We're going to make sure it's a level playing field. We're going to ensure that people are following the rules, that they're not cheating. And then outside of that, like it's your field, it's your field. So go play the game.
I can't help but think of a scripture reference of like the dispensation of almost all men, right? As soon as they get a little bit of power, they'll practice unrighteous dominion.
Yeah.
And one of the key reasons of why men practice unrighteous dominion is because they seek the honors of men. So you want a president that doesn't practice unrighteous dominion? He shouldn't be seeking the honors of men.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard because a lot of those who are in politics obviously have political and self-serving aspirations. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. But when it comes at the expense of other individuals, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you could think of one shining example of a president that's a perfect example of this, and it would be George Washington.
Of course.
Had no desire to even want to be president.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even want the office.
King. He could have been made king. And he said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
step
He
down.
was like, I'll do this because I've been asked to and because the country needs me, but I don't want it. Like he purposely did not want to be president multiple times.
Yep.
It's crazy.
We need more men like that. But the problem is that you can make an actually pretty amazing and lucrative career off being a politician.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to make money being a politician. You shouldn't be able to write a bunch of books.
It should be a sacrifice.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you should want to go back to your life, to lead your family, to lead your community, to start your business, to pick up where you left off. I actually think that with missionary work for older couples, like these are individuals who have the financial means to go on a mission on their own accord, spend their own money, and they leave their families and their grandkids and their work and their friends and their own pursuits for 2 years to go serve the Lord. And then they only then, when they're done, do they come back and they can get back into the swing of things. But they do it as a sacrificial. And I'm not saying they don't get anything out of it. Of course they do.
Yeah.
You know, they get the feeling and the experience and the emotions.
Yeah, but the reward is not
the rewards.
any
It's not
it requires
financial.
sacrifice.
Exactly.
Yeah. No financial benefit. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I wish more people were willing to make that sacrifice, but you don't have to you don't sacrifice when you become a politician. You elevate your status anymore.
Yeah.
There's no sacrifice to it.
Matt Tilton, 57. How long did it take you before you really became comfortable in jiu-jitsu?
It took me like a month, and then I felt really comfortable. And
what was your definition of being comfortable?
Then it's just been comfortable. Like I don't ever get submitted.
Yeah.
I like going every day. I just
go and dominate. Yeah.
When I'm in pain, like it just kind of goes away. And when a kid who's 40 pounds lighter than me rolls with me and catches me in something, I'm like, I'm comfortable with that. Like that's cool. Like I have no problem with that.
Doesn't threaten me. Yeah.
It's been so easy. I don't know what everybody's been complaining about. Holy shit. Okay, let's talk about this from the perspective I'm sharing, but let's also answer it in the spirit of which it's intended.
Yeah.
So the truth of it is you'll never be comfortable. And that's actually the point, is that you'll never, ever, ever be comfortable. Kipp, you've been training for what? A dozen or so? You're 12 years or so?
Yeah. 13 years.
Yeah. Are you comfortable?
No. No. Sometimes I show up at the mat, I stand there and go, what the freak am I doing?
Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, my elbow's really been hurting over the past week, and so
inside or outside? Elbow? Inside or outside? Inside?
Just the entire thing.
You're like, the elbow, wait, you know what? It's just my body.
It feels like a hyperextension issue to me is what it feels like. I might have just got my arm cranked a little too hard or something. That's what it feels like. Anyways, I brought that up. All I'm saying is like physically, mentally, it's never comforting. But it's supposed to be that. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I think what he's asking is, when did you
that initial barrier of like feeling uncomfortable?
Like, okay,
showing
this
up.
is how it is, right? Like kind of get into the routine.
Little
like,
confidence.
This is yes.
Yeah.
I would say I got that as a blue belt. When I became a blue belt, I felt that a little bit. Yeah. Like I felt like, oh, okay, I can actually do this, like I can improve, I can get better. I know a few things. I know some fundamentals. I don't get trapped and caught like every time I roll, like I can hang, even if I go roll the brown belt, like he's going to have to work to submit me. He's going to have to put forth some effort. Yeah. And I felt like when I got my blue belt, that was kind of a physical representation of, okay, yeah, we could do this. This is cool. Like you're good. You got this. Yeah. But I don't think I really felt that before. And I felt not obligated because I really did enjoy going, but I did feel like I had to force myself more through training than I did as I became a blue belt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's stages of that, right? Where sometimes you might be, it's like a new guy and you're like maybe a little nervous to roll with him, right? Because you don't know his skill set. You're not sure how difficult that's going to be. And then in years, you might be more comfortable with rolling anybody, right? But that's not going to come until time. What I think is really interesting about what you said, Ryan, is I think a lot of that confidence, or some of that confidence, comes from the fact that you know something. And what's interesting is new guys, I always think of jiu-jitsu as an escalator, right? You hop on the escalator last, everyone's always in front of you as you progress up this escalator.
Yeah.
And it's not until someone gets behind you on the escalator, do you actually get to like try out your skill, you know?
For sure.
And what's funny is sometimes, and I think this is a parable to life a little bit, is we're going along going, shit, this is tough. And I don't have any confidence. And then you get a chance to test it. And then you go, oh, I do know something. I am progressing. It's just sometimes you may not know it, you know, and as you progress, eventually guys get on the escalator behind you. And I think that first time the guy is able to roll with a noob and catch him, you're like, holy crap, I got a special power.
Or catch a higher belt, you know, just like catch him. You're like, oh, I caught him. You know, I caught him.
Yeah.
And it might have just been a fluke, but you still caught him.
Totally.
And that's pretty cool too.
And then back to the original points that you were making about never being comfortable. That's when, and I joke around, of course, but that's when the jiu-jitsu gods go, oh, I sense a little bit of ego in you, Ryan. And then the next day you come to the gym and everyone taps you and you're like, dang it, I was just feeling confident about myself, you know? So
one of the things that I've been learning, you're 100% accurate with that. But one of the things I've been learning is that your goal doesn't have to be the same with everybody that you roll with. And I used to think, well, to win, you have to submit the person. Like that's how you win. And if you're in a tournament, yes, I would agree that is, you know, you submit them or you beat them on points, whatever. That's obviously the point. But I used to think that about training, like, oh, it's a good roll if I get Kipp to submit. That's a good roll. Well, that's actually not true. And I've learned that. So I've got Ryan Daggett, for example. So tall guy, he's probably 6'4", 6'5", brown belt, really long legs, super long arms, super long legs. And so when I roll with him, my goal is to submit him, of course, but I don't define that as winning. I define it as, okay, well, I'm not going to let him sweep me, or I'm not going to let him stretch me out. Yeah. And if I can avoid getting stretched out by him, I feel pretty good about that. And then I roll with Keegan Roberts, who's Pete Roberts' son. Well, Keegan he's 17 or 18. And so he's young. He's smaller than me. He's a white belt, but he's amazing. Like his jiu-jitsu IQ is incredible. And he actually hasn't been training that long because he's been so involved in other sports. When I roll with him, I swear I have to fight as hard as I can not to get stuck in a triangle. He loves the triangle game and he attacks from all different angles, all different positions. And I have to fight hard. He's a white belt. I'm a blue belt. So I think like, well, I should be able to beat him. No, for me, rolling with him, I consider it a win if he's not able to catch me in a triangle.
Totally.
And then I have other guys who they have different games. And I'm like, okay, well, my goal is not to get swept. My goal is not to get triangled. My goal is not to get stretched out. My goal is to submit this individual. So I go into every training
different
scenario
battles
with a different. Yes, exactly.
Totally. Well, and it's like I was telling one of the guys here at the office the other day, it's like, there's actually only a handful of guys where I go 100% with, because that's a good roll with them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's another guy at the gym. We call him Iron Man, insanely strong, like freakish, like it's just horrible. And I've changed my game. I don't even try to submit him. My goal is to stay calm because my natural reaction is to counter his strength. Right. So he's like, and then I'm like, and I'm like, why am I doing that?
Right.
So I'm trying to like loose arms, calm, flow with him, try to use his momentum against him. Don't try to fight him. Mm-hmm. And so I'm being creative in my game with him, you know, and that's my focus with him, you know, so.
And the cool thing about that is that you can always create a win for yourself if you look at it that way.
Yeah. Because we're focused on learning.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not lowering your expectations. That's the other thing that we have to realize too, is like, just because I'll use Keegan as an example, just because I consider it a win if he doesn't submit me in a triangle, that doesn't mean I'm lowering my expectations. I'm still training. I'm still going hard. I'm still doing it. I'm still attempting to submit him. So I'm not lowering my standard. I'm just reevaluating it or figuring out based on the circumstances what a win actually is. And that's life too, right? So you're not always going to get the deal. You're not always going to get the girl. You're not always going to knock it out of the park. You don't always have to. Some moves might just be, hey, all I'm doing here is just teeing this up for myself, or all I'm doing here is taking a break from that, reevaluating my priorities and working towards this. Or all I'm doing right now is, maybe I'm not trying to get super jacked, but I need to lose some weight because I'm running a marathon. And so I'm not going to evaluate my performance based on what I can deadlift, but how far I can run without having to, keel over and throw up. Like, we got to be able to pivot and adjust in life based on the circumstances we find ourselves in.
And here's the kicker, because it shows up in jiu-jitsu and it shows up in life, I think, is you will play games of excuses in the moment.
Totally.
Like I've been tempted, like where a guy gets like sweeps me and then in my mind, I will lie to myself and go, oh, well, I want to practice off my back. No. I wasn't planning on that before I got swept. Right. And, but I'm totally justifying my laziness or the fact that like, I don't want to fight harder or whatever. In the moment, like in a split second, I'll make excuses for myself. It's so crazy how that stuff shows up.
I think you're exactly right. I do that same thing too, but here's a great life lesson and not enough people will do this. The way that I've gotten over that. What's that?
Before you start.
No, well, yes, but what I'm going to share is something a little different.
Okay.
Is I verbally compliment the person. So like, let's say Kipp, you and I are rolling and you sweep me with some obscure, like interesting technique that I've never seen or experienced before. It would be easy for me to say, well, he's a brown belt. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we do. Instead, I would say, whoa, that was really good. I didn't even see that coming. And I compliment the person. Because there's a lot of things it does. Number one is it forges a deeper connection between me and you. Like now you appreciate that, right? You're like, oh, cool. I feel good about that. So I
know you're not angry. And I know you're not angry that I swept you.
Of course. And also for me personally, it triggers curiosity.
Yeah.
Because if I'm like that. Whoa, Kipp, that holy shit. Like you got me. Like that was really good. In my mind, I'm like, how did he do that? Yeah. And so my wheels start, what did he do? How did he set me up? And so it puts me on a better path, and the same thing is true with life. Like when you get hosed here's one I get all the time. I get into comparison trap a lot. Where I'll compare myself to another podcaster or another, something similar to what I'm doing here. And I'll be like, oh, well, if I had what he had, and all that kind of stuff. Instead, I say, whoa, that's actually a really good video. Or, oh my goodness, that shirt that he just came out with, that's rad. Or that podcast or that person that he just got on his podcast, that's an incredible podcast guest. And then what it leads me to is, well, how did he do that? How did he get that person? How did he connect with that person? Why did he do it that way? Why is he successful? And it triggers curiosity for me, which stimulates growth and progress in myself rather than saying, well, yeah, if I was in his position, then I'd be able to do that too. That stymies growth. That hinders your progress.
Yeah. The one thing I thought you were going to say is, and I'll use it to like a workout as an example, is deciding before I roll that I'm not going to get swept. I'm not going to give up position.
Oh, yeah.
And then that way, in the minute of the roll, when I get swept, I don't go, oh yeah, I'll just work off. Like, no, that went against what I've decided. Right. And I think even like we can do that on workouts. I've done that. I do that on work. I did it this morning. This morning I had chest, tries, and calves. That was my workout. I skipped calves. I didn't plan on skipping calves, but I did when calves came. Why? Well, I went snowboarding yesterday and, I got my legs. Dude, I seriously made an excuse. Yeah. But if I went to the gym and before I started, I said, I'm not going to skip any of the exercises. 100% exactly what it's part of my program. Then when that comes, I go, nope. I know better.
Got to do it.
I know better.
Yeah. One of the things I've been working on with my oldest son, because we train together a couple of days a week, and it's me and him and one other individual. And when he rolls with this other individual, it's Brody Cousineau. He's a friend and training partner. But So Brecken will roll with him or me, and he'll get swept. And when he gets swept, he'll like flop and say, darn. And I'm like, Breck, you got to stop saying that. And he's like, what? Why? Like, I'm
Sense of
frustrated.
giving up.
It's not over, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, so I just took your feet out from under you. It's not, I didn't finish yet.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't roll up on top of you. Like, you could have just popped on your side, shrimped away, and got back into position. But when I take your feet or your knees from under you and you say, darn, you're thinking about what happened rather than what could happen next.
Yeah.
So stop saying darn every time you get swept. And when you get swept, just pop back up on your knees real quick.
Yeah. Say nope. Nope.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I've been working with him on that, but I think we do that, right? Like
Totally,
we get defeated, we get one little blow and we're like, oh, darn, it ain't over, bro. I'll tell you when it's over. And this ain't it. You might have got a punch in right now, but it ain't over.
Yeah.
It's only over when you succumb to it. You give in and you flop on the floor and say, that sucked. That didn't suck. Yeah. Okay. That stung a little. All right. What else you got? Is that all? Is that all you got?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and we call that crushing the soul, right? Like sometimes you sense that in jiu-jitsu where you get in position and you feel the guy's spirit like go out of his body, like, you know what I mean? And you just destroyed him mentally.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is you sense it and you're like, yes, like now you're mine.
That's good. Yeah.
But for the guy that goes, nope, it almost crushes your soul.
It does, because that was your best
right
shot.
Because you're like, shit.
Yes.
And this guy's not giving up. And then it forces me to confront my soul. And am I willing to fight against this guy that's unwilling to give up? Yeah, it's really interesting.
It is. One of the things I started doing is like after the roll, I would like flop on the ground, be like, I'm tired, and just lay there on the mat for a second, But I made a decision a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Pop up. Yeah.
Pop up. Get your freaking ass off the mat. Like, you don't lay there defeated in your own pile of sweat and tears. You get up and look, you can be tired. I get it. Of course. But you don't walk around tired. You get up. You don't like bend over and put your head between your legs and like suck wind. No, you get up quickly and then you go get a drink or whatever. You adjust your gi and you go right back at it. That's what you do. That's what I do anyways. When I like, no more laying around for me. Not doing that.
I like that. I do that sometimes after a roll. I'm like,
of course,
dead on the mat.
Nope, I'm not doing it.
I dig it. I'm going to start doing burpees.
Yeah, just burpees. Bring it on. Keep going.
Next roll.
That's right. All right.
Okay.
I think we've done it for today, or I don't know. Do we have one or two more you want to take?
Yeah, let's do one more if that's okay.
All right.
Thomas Appenheimer, where do you think the line is between confidence and being arrogant, and how do you think we should avoid crossing it?
Results.
Confidence and arrogance.
Results. If you're still producing favorable results for you and the people that you have an obligation for, then that confidence, we'll just say it, that factor is serving you. But if you're undermining yourself or you're undermining others, or they no longer believe in you or trust you to the degree that they should, and your
results aren't there.
Yeah. And your performance is suffering, then you may have crossed the line into arrogance, ego, excessive pride. So confidence
becomes more about you, not the results of what you're doing.
Yeah. Confidence is a multiplier, right? So confidence, if Kipp, I'm partnered with you in some way, and I know you're a confident individual in that thing, then that's a multiplying effort on your part, because it instills a sense of confidence in me and pride in what we're doing. And it might even get me to work harder. Confidence is a multiplier. Arrogance, ego, excessive pride is a detractor. It detracts from what could be, and it stymies potential growth and progress. So you need to be able to have some sort of system in place to evaluate your results. And if your results are still good and still performing and still growing, then it just is a level of confidence, and you should be excited about that. But if you start to see yourself tapering off or other people tapering off, then you may have crossed the threshold from confidence to arrogance and ego.
Got it.
And the way you overcome it is you go back to humility. Okay,
Yeah.
what can I do to fix and correct and course correct and get back on the path?
Love it. I want to get this last question in. Maybe we can make this one click. So Ryan Mills, I've heard you talk about abandoned responsibility as an opportunity for other guys to step up and answer the call. Can you talk more about that?
Abandoned responsibility. I don't know that
So I'm
I've,
assuming other guys are dropping the ball and we
yeah,
should
it's
rise
awesome.
up and
Yeah.
address.
Isn't that,
Yeah.
isn't that great? You know,
Yeah.
we complain about it a lot, like, oh, society this, society that. There's no real men. There's no this. There's no leadership. Everybody's this. Everybody's that. Great, good, perfect.
Now you can do it. Yeah.
You just created a vacuum. So all you have to do, the barrier to entry and the bar for success is set so pathetically low that all you have to do is just that much more and you'll outshine everybody else. And I'm not saying you should do just that much more. You should do that much more. But
Yeah.
just know that any sort of effort and progress on your part represents a very clear opportunity for you to step up and lead and then to reap the benefits that come from it. Whether it's increased income or social clout and influence, there's benefits. You know, we've all heard the term, to the victor goes the spoils. There's benefits to leading. There's benefits to being the best, to picking up that mantle. And so if you see people who are dropping the ball, and by the way, we don't do this out of spite. That's one thing you do have to be careful of, because then
Genuine.
people can see that, right? And you're not helping. You're hurting yourself. So we don't do it to get revenge or to be spiteful or like, I'll show him or I'm going to upstage him. No, you do it. You're like, oh, here's an opportunity.
There's a need.
Yeah. Here's a great place where I can step in and I can lead, or I can direct, or I can add value. I can give resources. Man, the more you do that with the right intent, with the right motive, which is to serve other people, it's there. I mean, those opportunities are everywhere. So look for them, exploit them, not in a negative way, but exploit those opportunities, and the world is yours. Quite literally,
Yeah.
the world is yours.
And what a great way to be fulfilled when we're in the service of other men and we can have jobs and our focus is in service.
Right.
That's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's impactful. That's nice. That's a good place to be. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what position you're in. You can look for those opportunities and you can see those things. The term I've used in the past, and this comes from our church, Kipp, is magnify your calling.
Yeah.
Just magnify it, guys. Like, if in this podcast, how can we magnify this podcast? If you're having dinner with your wife, how could you make it better? How could you make the dinner with your wife or your family better? If you're at home and you're doing chores, do you make the bed, or do you fold the corners, tuck it just perfectly, fluff the pillows, and put a little mint there at the end? You know what I'm saying? Like, magnify it. Every encounter, every situation. If you're working on a project, you know, you might be doing some paint and you're like, I won't get that corner because nobody will see it. No, magnify it. Do it. Paint the corner, even though it might actually be covered up, because that's going to spill over into other ways of your life, and you're just going to be better for it. So just magnify every opportunity, every situation, every encounter and conversation. Just, how can I make this better? How can I make this better? And constantly be working towards that.
I love it. And one thing that you guys can do to make this better, this movement, is like what we mentioned earlier, like share this message. Let's create the momentum that we were talking about, or really progress the momentum that already exists around the Order of Man movement. And you can do so by sharing, subscribing to this podcast, checking videos on YouTube. There's a lot of snippets that are on the YouTube channel as well. So those are really great ways to be able to share aspects of messages. And then of course, join us on Facebook and follow Mr. Michler on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Michler. And then of course, if you are interested in banding with us in the Iron Council, you can learn more about that at orderofman.com/Iron Council. And we have a new quarter starting up. We function in the Iron Council in quarters. So if you want to align with us and you're not in the IC, join the IC or sign up for Battle Ready. And there's no better way to start off the next quarter, Q2 of 2021, than getting your battle plan figured out. So go to orderman.com/battle ready to get rolling there.
Yep. Perfect. Make sure you band with us in one way or the other. On YouTube, we're just under 200,000 subscribers. So I think we're at 199,460 or something. So just go over, subscribe, help us put us over that 200,000 mark. That's a cool benchmark. And obviously you'll watch the videos and everything that come with it. And Kipp, I was going to say, one way that you can improve your podcasting is there's a little white hair on your microphone that I've literally had to stare at for the past. There we go. I should have told you earlier, because that little white hair, your little gray beard hair is bothering me. So
and if you wanted to be bothered as well, you could see that white hair on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm sure everyone appreciates it.
No problem. Hey, look, everybody was already thinking it. I'm the one who said it. So, all right, you guys, I appreciate you. Kipp, I appreciate you on this as well. Great questions today. Keep them coming, and we'll connect with you on Friday for our Friday field notes. But until then, go out there, guys, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.